So we thought it's a good philosophy to have. The easiest possible way of construction often ends up being the cheapest, the most robust, and the greenest, the most sustainable.
Amiche e amici, benvenuti o bentornati a Strutture Invisibili, il video podcast in cui esploriamo storie, idee e spazi che danno forma al mondo in cui viviamo. Io sono Paolo Pizzichini, ormai non serve più che ve lo ricordi, e ci troviamo alla Casa dell'Architettura, non esattamente dove eravamo la scorsa volta, per il secondo appuntamento del ciclo di incontri che si chiama Contemporanea, in particolare conversazioni sulla pratica del progetto. Una opportunità per noi enorme di intervistare delle personalità del campo dell'architettura di altissimo livello. Infatti io sono super contento, veramente ringrazio ancora Claudio e Marco, l'ordine, la Casa dell'Architettura. Bene, oggi siamo con un architetto con il quale io sognavo di parlare, che ammiro tantissimo, che è Amin Taha. Amin, Mr. Taha, thank you so much for being here. We are going to speak in English, and thank you also for taking time to join us before your lecture, because you are going to have
thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. We have this little talk. I'm going to be very informal in this talk. The first question is about your work in Rome, because you have the occasion, the opportunity to work in a project here in Rome, the Maxi. Everybody is from Rome in Italy knows the Maxi with ZAHA HADID. What I found interesting is the work itself, but the experience of working with ZAHA HADID leaves you both highs and lows experiences. I'm curious about something. What kind of experience this both highs and lows experience brings you to establish your study, GROUPWORK Architects, as an employee ownership fund?
I see. Okay. I'm just wondering what you think the lows are.
I don't know. Maybe these big orchestra, these fires are, I don't know.
I see. Well, at that time, the office was about 25 people. The project kept on stopping and starting, and so we would jump from Maxi's resolution from 1 to 200 to 1 to 500. There's a specific system that we had to get used to, the Italian system of generating information at certain stages. And strictly speaking, we had a very good Italian team back in the UK who kept on reminding us, you do not need to do the details.
Oh, wow.
That early on.
They tell you this.
Well, yeah. So we said, don't worry about it. We will do the details anyway, because we don't want to be surprised later on. So there was a number of challenges of just learning how to work in Italy, in the Italian system, especially, financially, the office was quite small, and the money did have to get distributed, managed. And it was very difficult at that time. We had lots of exhibitions, I think about 3 different global exhibitions of the work, mostly at competition stage, even if you'd won it, which took a lot of the resources, dare I say, salaries. So ZAHA was away most of the time promoting the office. So there are some very positive takeaways from the way that the office was run, in that it was very collaborative. So everybody who, from a recent graduate to somebody who'd been there maybe 15 years, worked together. The hierarchy was pretty much ZAHA and everybody else at that time. But that collaboration often meant that maybe we'd split ourselves into 5 teams to work on projects in the first 2 weeks, come together, decide if the interpretation was better in one area or another, maybe amalgamate them.
Okay.
Nobody got upset.
Like a competition.
Yeah, exactly, internal competition. Without it being emotionally competitive, everybody was very enthusiastic that the practice as a whole should push forward. So you take those sort of things away, that collaboration. The lows you're probably alluding to is the idea that, yes, there is a hierarchy where, dare I say, what can I say? Financially, everything is focused in one area. And yes, inevitably, you're thinking, well, actually, if you look around the office, there are people. I was 30 perhaps at that time. And there are people who just graduated, and you can see people are struggling financially, and perhaps also in their motivation. And really, everybody that's coming together doing that work is the practice, and it's the work. Although you can imagine client side, most people always, I'm not sure if it's changed that much, but most client side, whether it's a mayor of a city, they want to see the.
I think you feel a real part of the.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we felt it was our contribution, even if it wasn't recognized at the other side. And yes, you're right. So when setting up practice, it was the last practice I worked in before setting up.
Is the last project you worked before the?
Yeah, the last office.
Okay.
Probably the last project as well. Yeah, and then right from the start, the idea was that we should share equally. We collaborate. Don't call the practice necessarily after one name. Even if clients do want to see who is the head, who do I speak to every day, the figurehead, there's still that desire, isn't there? Nevertheless, the idea is that it's a shared system. So what does that mean? It means automatically, as soon as you join the office, there is a financial structure to it. You are an equal partner. Yeah. As soon as you leave the office, you're no longer a partner of it. The office owns the office. No individual, no groups, as it were, own the office. If people leave, come and go, the office is always owned by the office. So financially, what that means is that as the fees come in, you're spending it where you need to on salaries, overheads, all the rest of it. At the end of the financial year, you make a constitution saying, do we give 100% of what's in the bank to everybody, share it equally, or do we put some of them in savings for and then some of the rest we then share out. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's up to us as a group to decide those things. And we meet every month. We're very transparent. It's very scary if you're just graduated and it says on the screen, here is the job that you're working on, and how much work should you have done? How much should you then bill the client?
Okay.
And you add the different jobs together. You can see the income. You can see the outgoing.
Wow. So transparent. It's very
and there's
democratic.
There's a nice graph showing black and red for when you're not doing well. And you can see sometimes it might be 6 months, 8 months where you're spending more than you're getting. People look at that and get very scared. I have to explain almost all practices. There's very few who are always in black, as it were. You get very well paid perhaps on one job, you've done very well, you've finished it, but that money's in the bank, the profits are in the bank, which basically means there is a bottom line that's black. So don't get scared. You might pull the shutters down and close the office in 2 years if you get no more work. But that's unusual. So I think it's a good discipline for people when they come in. They see, okay, we all are part of that transparency. We all need to they actually have a sense of why they're working for that income, that turnover, and then obviously their bonuses at the end. At the moment, I'm happy to say that the bonuses are enough for people to then buy their own apartments. I mean, when I was a graduate quite late on to my career, amongst lots of architects, you're living in an apartment with 8 other people, mostly other architects.
So maybe London is a critical city.
Yes, probably specifically to London. And you watch all your other friends who might have studied some became lawyers, accountants, bankers, all the rest of it, by which time they've already got houses, families, going on holiday and hiring you as an architect. And you're thinking there's something not quite right about the way architecture is structured.
I can imagine, because I have some friends in London. One of my best friends are working in night architects in England. I had some friends in Foster partner. This is a very, very crucial thing but also for us in role. Your role in an architectural study is I think is very, very inspiring. This kind of organization.
And I was very positive about it and would spend time telling people about it and hoping that others would do it. What I found recently is clearly some accountants have told lots of architects do it because there's a way of exploiting it. So unfortunately, there's a lot of architects exploiting it. And this is really those architects who started the firm, the founders, they never from the beginning till now have given a single penny of ownership to anybody else. It's still theirs. But they're thinking, what do I do when I retire? Maybe retirement is 5 years away, 10 years away. What do I do? Traditionally, you would ask somebody senior in the office, a generation down, buy the office. Go and take a bank loan and buy the office. But it's so difficult. You've got student loans. You're struggling with your own finances. Nowadays, it's very difficult to go to a bank and say, I want to buy a partnership. If you're a lawyer, it's still possible. So they buy themselves into the partnership. But as architects, it's almost impossible, which basically means you as a founder might have spent 30 years building a practice. That does have value, because the value is now what the tech industry calls a platform. It exists. It has clients. It has repeat work, and there's no reason why it shouldn't carry on. But if you don't have partners, senior partners who want to buy it, who's going to buy it? What's the value? The real value is who's interested. Very few. There are private equity firms who make the mistake, and they never stop making the mistake of thinking architects are very profitable, and then they quickly dispose of them when they realize they're not. But that's the value is who would buy it at that price that you're expecting. So what these people are doing are going to a bank saying, look, I've had a valuation by accountants that my business is worth £6 million. There's £2 million on the bank account. Can I take a loan and sell the business to the office with that loan? So I take the loan and take the cash and say, now I'm retired. All of you own the business now, yeah? But what do you own? You own a £6 million debt. So suddenly, it sounds great for these people. I've seen various practices go through it. It's quite sad because everybody gets very excited, thinking, where the ownership is, employee ownership trust. And then they sort of realize, my God, there's a huge monthly debt that has to be serviced. And within 6 months, they're having to fire all their colleagues, and then lay them off in masses. You think it's unfortunate the way that's gone. And that's really mismanagement of how you do that. It's not just, I gifted the value of the office because it really was right at the beginning, so the value is sort of questionable anyway. But today, I think if it was worth 6 million, you wouldn't ask, can I have all of it in one go? What you should do is structure it so it's released over a long time. And that way the debt is not a burden, a crippling burden. It takes all the creative energy out of the office. That's the case of all sorts of employment, isn't it? Why do we do it? It's we have you'll see that in the talk, where we begin to question, well, how do we measure architecture? How do we value architecture? While we're studying, it's pretty much all about it's all pretty much learning initially in those first few months and years. But at the same time, while you're learning that theory and history, there's plenty of apocryphal tales that put the architect as the master, normally singular, and detached from the client in that sense. There's an arrogance to the client. And there's nothing really about a broader ethical measurement, So yes, you might be measuring the quality of your ability to coordinate plan, section elevation, create beautiful spaces, and you have to define what those are, the play of light and texture and color. They are not, I'm not saying they're legitimate ways of measuring. They're certainly not that. Nevertheless, what are the others? And do they influence that? Because all of that obviously influences the outcome of a piece of architecture. From the moment you're beginning to think and draw, it's never the initial outcome. There's always a balance struck towards the end at the point where you decide, okay, I think I've reached a satisfactory balance in the time I've been given. But are there any other ethical areas that could also influence that outcome? Of course. And those first areas, apart from how do you structure the office, how do you motivate people, are they happy, are you happy? Apart from that, then yes, how do you treat your client? Forget that is an ethical responsibility. But what are the other outcomes? Are they, so how you treat your client is ultimately a financial outcome. Are you going to bankrupt him? Because you've got plenty of apocryphal tales.
You need the client.
We was often the project manager at the same time, inevitably, legitimately wants to keep the project safe. Doesn't want the contractor to go bust, because otherwise the client's got problems. So he's happy for the contractor to meet what's called market rates of construction. Why would we go below that? There's a danger if we go below that, then the contractor suffers and they might go bust. So you can understand their motivations. So anything, away from that is exotic and a potential liability for them. But in the end, the client understood. We explained to the client, this is not exotic, it's just timber and pieces of stone. There's nothing exotic about it. In the long term, it's more robust, less damage. Knocking these materials, timber and stone, doesn't mean you have to go back in every year, repaint and plaster, etc., repair. And if it's 25% lower, your mission, your headline mission to your organization is provide affordable housing, take people off the streets, the homeless off the street. And if you're saving 25% on this project, you've got another bunch of projects to come soon. For every fourth project you do, you get a fifth one for free. Yeah, and that's your ethical mission, isn't it? So we're helping you. And they realize, yeah, okay, fine. Let's do it.
It's also about the way you can communicate this to the constructors.
Yeah, to everyone.
Also, you have to communicate this, and maybe if you found the right way to communicate, they understand the value of this. This is particularly related to the second question. Second question I want to ask you, that's about the CLERKENWELL clause. You are talking about this kind of technology, and I found so interesting. You started from the being lazy because you say that you illustrated the gap between how we build a normal facade in a stone, normal building with a stone facade, and how we could build. And in a different way, in this kind of way, you can take less money. And I just want to ask you if you could elaborate this. What does it mean to you to design tectonically? Because I think this relates to this kind of approach to design.
Yeah. Well, from that earlier answer, it was that questioning of how we value architecture, that we're sort of going back. How do we value it in the past? And you might say somebody like Vitruvius would have just, as we often say it, there's three values. In English we say firmness, commodity, and delight. For some reason we changed the delight to beauty. I don't know if that's a translation thing, that the Italian should be beauty or should it be delight?
No, I think it should be beauty. Beauty.
So weirdly, we call it, maybe we're just embarrassed.
Beauty, okay.
Maybe English sensibilities are embarrassed about calling things beautiful. We just say should be delightful. So there's three there. So that's just, it doesn't fall on your head. It's firm, commodity. It meets the budget. And then, yes, it's beautiful. And then when we have to define what's beautiful. So for the time being, that's a big topic. Let's set the beauty aside. That's a couple of areas of negotiation, because all these ethical ideas, they're ultimately areas that we negotiate between ourselves. So as a society, or even in an office, what's more important? Will this work? Will that not work? Do we change them? So regularly we'll sit down and have these conversations. And obviously today, one of the areas I'm going to be focusing on is on sustainability. So this is yet another dimension. So obviously ethically, you might be managing people within the office in terms of fairness of salaries and involvement in how the office is run. And then, yes, the firmness, the commodity. So that is what materials you're using. You don't want something to fall on your head. How much is it costing? What's the embodied carbon of it? Does it cost a great deal to run because you come up with a beautiful idea, but unfortunately it loses so much energy that you have to turn the heating up, so on and so forth. So you balance all those out. Specifically about beginning to look at stone in a lazy way, that comes from, there's a current, if you like, global convention of how we build, and that has its history. That you have a frame, so you have the domino frame, if you like, and a lightweight structure that can be suspended from that. So whether that's Mises glass or Corb's windows, But inevitably, the build-up had to get heavier and heavier. For,
so many
for
layers.
Fire, thermal, waterproofing, you name it. And then fashions change. Fashions change from the all-glass curtain walling to brutalist, where the brutalist is actually a sort of fake in situ concrete that's suspended, to current fashions where, especially in the UK, where everything has to be brick. And that's real bricks suspended from the floor. Yeah, so inevitably, because the technology began that way, you just compensate for whatever you're suspending, whether it's single layer of glass, which you can't have anymore, to bricks or some other material, precast material. Yeah. Yes, that's useful in terms of thermal separation, waterproofing and so on, fireproofing and so on. But there's a lot of detailing involved. There's a lot of materials, layers, different trades, so that's different subcontractors, all of which adds complexity and cost and body carbon and ultimately liability. In other words, how long is this going to last and who's going to repair it? And that's from our personal experience. You know, all of us were in offices, whether it's all the offices you can name, spending our time every day drawing these materials and layers, making sure they're fully coordinated. And if there's a slight shift, somebody wants to move a window or a door frame or something else, all that has to be redrawn. You can, if you're a very commercial practice, hand that responsibility over to this contractor and say, look, I just want it to look like this, approximately, you deal with it, yeah?
The more the layer, the more
and then the coordination is up to them.
And
it's not really beautifully detailed as a result. So if you really want to control that detail, you have to draw it all. And being lazy simply asks the question, do I actually need all these layers? Do I need to draw all these extra layers? You know, what are they doing for me? Is it possible, after seeing a steel frame or a concrete frame, which needs its, if it's steel, fireproofing and then waterproofing, insulation, vapor check, penetrating with galvanized clamps, sealing those penetrations until you get a clamp that goes on the back of a stone veneer tile. And then you might have 2-3 guys on site adjusting these tiles all week until they have one column, until they do the rest of the facade. And you wonder, why can't I just get a piece of stone, as we did maybe 100 years ago?
Every room. There are so many examples.
Exactly. Let alone millennia. Is it possible just to get a piece of stone? Everybody in the UK at that time was saying, well, but why? Well, it must be really expensive and the engineering doesn't work. Really? When was the last time you worked on something that you found this fact out? Well, I never have. Okay, why is that? Well, it must be really expensive. So there's this weird circular argument of assumptions. Luckily, we were working with the French stonemasons, because in France, they still train them in what's called dimension stone. They train them how to cut pieces of stone for structure. We asked, look, we're building a lovely staircase with you, which is interesting because it's structural. It's one piece of stone resting on the other, taking the load path down.
Yes.
Can we put a building up in stone? Is that possible? 5 stories, 5-6 stories.
Also a skyscraper, maybe 30 floors.
Well, I mean, our initial ambition was simply 5 stories. And he looked at us as if we were fools. He said, well, look at the rest of London. It's made out of limestone. Only until 100 years ago, it was all masonry, bricks and stone. Mm-hmm. Do you think those buildings look like they're about to come down?
Mm-hmm.
So we learned very quickly it was possible. We pulled in an engineer, a very good engineer. We work with Steve Webb of Webb Yates. And together we sat down with a French stonemason, began to talk about how large these pieces would be. How would you engineer them under the current codes? Because the current codes don't allow for stone at all. And the initial principle was, let's use the stone as if it's unreinforced concrete. Find out the strength of it. We sent it for testing, and of course it turned out to be so much stronger than concrete. It even has a tensile property that concrete doesn't have. But nevertheless, I mean, London is a non-seismic area, so it was a lot easier. So we found just stacking those stones was fine. And initially, we thought in terms of finishes, it comes cleanly cut and it must be patterned in some way. So we found out that the cost is possible. We found the engineering is possible. What is the architecture going to look like finally? What's the finish of the stone? Visiting those quarries, you find the extraction of limestone and sedimentary stone is actually reasonably straightforward. Sedimentary is revealed. Most architects and interior designers don't see that. They expect it to come clean face, and somebody creates a lovely pattern, texture, finish, including natural, which is taking a blowtorch with a chisel. And we say, well, we don't understand. Well, this is the natural with the fossils in it. Well,
the natural texture of the stone.
Nobody sees us. Yeah, nobody comes here. They never ask for this. They just want clean cut, and they have their choice of different finishes. So let's keep it. Let's keep it out of the quarry. If the rest of the world, let's call it the East especially, is satisfied with looking at natural finishes, whether it's timber or stone, the spirit of the material, let's see whether we can be satisfied. So yes, it's lazy in that you do a lot less drawing, we characterize it like that. Let's call it 30% of the drawings you would need to do if you had to do all those extra layers, and then the coordination. So we thought it's a good philosophy to have. The easiest possible way of construction often ends up being the cheapest, the most robust, and the greenest, the most sustainable.
Thank you so much for the generosity of your answer. And I found, obviously, the provocation, the word lazy, but I found so intelligent because it focuses the attention to all these aspects, the construction, the tectonic approach. I found the facade of the older building of the CLERKENWELL so related to the church, to the intimate consistency of London, of that part of London. And about that, and just the last question is about the 168 Upper Street, because I think these two buildings are related, since we are talking about the location, the stone. And I found so interesting your work on the mass, the solidity of this structural facade, that both function as a structure, but also internal ornament that is integrated in the facade. And you talked about a word that is misremembering. I would like to ask you something about this because I found so interesting.
I'm sure you have it here. I'm sure Rome is probably one of the first cities to suffer it. In the UK, we have what's called conservation areas. Please be careful what you build here, anything new. Unfortunately, the way the planning system works is, it's changing now. Certainly when 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago, when we submitted that design, the planning officers weren't necessarily the most qualified. So they would read a manual and it simply says, this is a conservation area. You must build something that looks like the old or respects the old.
Like the neoclassical buildings.
Yeah, it wouldn't actually say, please design a classical building. It would say, respect, mimic, fit in, conform. The language is essentially all about fitting it and conforming to your neighbor. Written originally in the 1970s. So you can see very quickly from that language that if you throw this back to them and say, right, if I told you to dress like your neighbor, think like your neighbor, conform to your neighbor, no matter how absurd their ideas or dress or behavior is, would you do it? Or would you have a conversation and perhaps suggest this is not the best way of and a lot of what's happened since the 1970s is people they're just fed up with having these conversations. Say, okay, I give up. I'm just going to do in the brick. They told me to use brick. I'll buy the cheapest brick, which is made yesterday. Doesn't look anything like the neighbor's bricks. I'll use a cement mortar. I'll pretend it looks slightly old. It has nothing. It has no proportions, nothing. So it's not tectonically similar, materially similar. It's very, very superficial. And I said, that's an insult. It's an insult to the past, as well as literally today, visually, a sort of insult to that neighboring building. And a misunderstanding of what that history is, and then therefore a miseducation. That's one aspect, So it's challenging that. and then realizing, okay, we're directly opposite the town hall where the planning committee meet. Our case officer, design officer is saying, no, please rebuild the old. Yeah, is that possible? It's going to be such a struggle for you to do something contemporary. And it was a competition with about 6 other architects. And we thought, well, what's going to happen is 6 other architects are all going to come up with personal architectural languages. And they're all going to say they're responding to the neighbor in a particular way. We had 2 weeks. So, well, actually, why don't we simply say we're rebuilding? Yeah, we're going to rebuild. Yeah, and the client said, I don't know how you're going to do it. You've shown us some drawings and sketches, but I like the idea. Yeah, he knew we weren't going to literally rebuild the old. So we started those conversations with the planning department, and we also reminded them that the street that they think is great is a Victorian street. It's using a very, very poor translation of the classical language because it is ultimately just shops with living accommodation above. They said it was Palladian. It's just simply a parade of shops, and somebody's just put very crudely some details here and there. We said this is an exploitation of a tradition, but then again, the neoclassical is exploitation of tradition. The use of temples for houses or even churches, pagan symbology for churches before people realized what they were, is a misremembering or misuse and misremembering of that. And actually what you should do is just take ownership. Just like all classical periods took ownership of some details, whether it's Romans taking ownership of appropriating Greek details, and play with it and say something different with it. And yes, of course, the twin wall, as cast on the inside as well as cast on the outside, is tectonic. In other words, it's bound together and becomes superstructure. So it's a hollow shell, and that speaks of the idea that this is a monument. Because we're being pushed to create this monumentalization of the past, the Victorian past, which is apparently ideal. We should all be aiming for that. Why is Britain not like it was in the Victorian period? Because it was perfect, wasn't it? And apart from child labor and the concepts of the poor deserved what they got because they must have had a terrible past life. And therefore there's no social welfare system, so on and so forth. We're saying, look, ultimately this memory is flawed. It's a misremembered past. Nevertheless, let's monumentalize it. Yeah, let's parody the idea of monument or what they desired by putting this on a pedestal, making this cast. So it's a solid cast form, hollow. It's, and then the new inhabitants are placed inside with new floor plates according to where they want to be. So the entire interior is timber. So apart from this cast in situ cast shell, that's structural, then the timber is suspended within that. All the internal walls, doors, partitions, and so on and so forth, the timber. So the new inhabitation is a warmer material, and then they crudely cut through the facade where they want to have their windows for bedrooms or living rooms and so on. In addition, you then choose a material. That's, yes, it's a casting, but it's also the idea that it's a poor translation, a poor idea of that past. It's a flawed narrative, because, monuments are ultimately an edited narrative, aren't they? You strip away the things that are a bit too much nuance, and you come up with a narrative that idealizes something. So we said, okay, let's use a material that's an in situ poured material. And if you try to say make perfect concrete, when you take the formwork off, there's flaws all over it. So we said, leave those flaws. They're not structural. They're just visual.
Yes.
The contractor didn't believe us, so he kept on trying to repair it. He said, we're not going to tell you to repair it. Please stop repairing it. Leave the flaws in there. In addition to that, what we did was take a point cloud survey of the symmetrical other side. Because the building had been bombed during the war and stayed as
Second World War.
It stayed empty as a plot until now. So we took a point cloud survey of that one, flipped it in CAD, and just created a model. But inevitably, from that point cloud survey, you can already see some flaws in the survey. And then translating that into a model, taking that model, sending it to a robot.
A CAD model?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had to then divide up that CAD model into areas that would become the formwork. So this is another one of those areas where you have to understand what you're dealing with. Otherwise, the cost consultant, the project manager will kill it. So the initial response at the first client meeting was it's going to cost 3 times the amount that the client wanted to spend. The client's looking at us saying, it's your fault. You came up with this crazy idea. So I said, well, where did this cost come from? Well, I talked to the engineer. Which engineer? We've never met the engineer yet. Yeah. I talked to the engineer who's going to be hired. He's going to do this, that, and the other. We went to the subcontractors who are going to do this, and this is the figure. And I said, well, who's designing this? We or you, the cost consultant? Well, how else are you going to do it? And we explained to them how we're going to do it. And they said, it's impossible. How can you possibly take expanded polystyrene, route it? And we explained how easy that was. We tested it with some contractors, and it was cheaper than doing something like fair-faced concrete. Yeah. So then they realized, okay, it's possible, financially possible.
After that,
yeah. But we also realized that you have to divide up the formwork in certain sizes. It can't be more than a certain size. So you're dividing up the entire CAD model into, I can't remember, 200 pieces of formwork that just routed out of expanded polystyrene. And you realize, okay, I've got a flaw in the survey. I have a flaw in the translation to the CAD model. I can have a flaw from the CAD model to the routing tool. And then I can have a flaw in the people that bring the formwork. Are they bringing it on the right? Yeah, they're bringing it on the right day. Is it upside down? Is it in that position instead of that position? And then ultimately when the material's poured in and then struck. So there's a series of flaws that you think, perfect. If you allow all these to add up together, you will then see a flawed monument, as it were, as well as misremembering the past.
Wow. It's so interesting. I think there are other, you said that maybe in another interview that you have some other buildings that are done in this way, maybe in France, in London too, but not maybe in a structural way, because this is also a structural facade.
Yes, so that is the facade is the superstructure. It's got some insulation in between, and then bound together it becomes the supporting structure. There are other buildings where we've used a similar idea, and I think they might be on the slideshow, like Bleeding Heart Yard, where it's just a mesh. Yeah, so it's a perforated mesh, which is about 70% air and 30% the metal. So from a distance, as you approach the building, it looks solid. It's sort of dark brown and slightly weathered looking. So in your peripheral vision, you're thinking it's part of the established
of the nucleus of the
exactly. That's right. Yeah, and we did that specifically on that project because 8 buildings had been demolished to create this 1970s very utilitarian-looking office building, but there was an extension coming to it, and we said let's dig out the archive, what used to be there. So why don't we re-establish those, put them in. So from a distance, people think, oh, this is the environment, the original conservation area environment. And slowly as you approach it, you can see sunlight coming through some of the corners of the buildings, where the roof is, where the chimneys are.
I also love the color of the paste. And it seems like, I think we have to close, but it seems like a ghost, a sort of ghost, because you feel the relation between the building and the neoclassical building. But you feel that is something different, something contemporary, but it's so related to the neoclassical. Fantastic. And I found fantastic this explanation. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we have to close. I can say all day long.
The thing is, I've talked about it so much, it's very easy for me to just spend 3 hours with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taha. It was a great pleasure, and I don't feel the time to listen to your lecture. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ciao a tutti, noi ci vediamo alla prossima, grazie a Daniele che è dietro alle telecamere e metteremo la traduzione di questa intervista ovviamente sotto. Scusatemi per il mio inglese, sorry for my English, because oggi sono stato particolarmente pessimo nel parlare inglese, ma rimedieremo. Ci vediamo alla prossima, ciao!